Captain Jake Morrison stood at the observation deck of Alpha 7 station, watching the empty space between Mars and Jupiter. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, but he didn't notice. The warning signals on his screen kept blinking red, telling him something big was coming. "Sir, we're getting more readings," said Lieutenant Amy Chen from her station. "Whatever it is, it's huge. Multiple ships, definitely not human." Jake nodded slowly. They had been waiting for this day for over 200 years. The day when someone else would find Earth. The day when humanity would have to face what they had left behind. The alien fleet appeared first as tiny dots on the long-range sensors. Then the dots grew bigger and bigger, until Jake could see them with his own eyes through the station's powerful telescopes. The ships were beautiful in a way that made his chest tight. They looked like giant crystals floating through space, catching starlight and throwing it back in rainbow colors. "How many ships?" Jake asked. 47 large vessels, sir, and hundreds of smaller ones. They're heading straight for Earth." Jake felt his hands shake a little. He had trained for this moment his whole life, just like his father before him, and his grandfather before that. Every person on Alpha 7 knew their job. Watch Earth, wait for visitors, and when they came, send the message home. The alien fleet moved with purpose. Their ships formed perfect patterns as they flew, like birds flying south for winter. Jake could tell they knew where they were going. They had found Earth on purpose, not by accident. "Lieutenant Chen, start recording everything. I want every movement, every signal, every piece of data." "Yes, sir." "Should I send the alert to command?" Jake thought about this. Once he sent that message, there would be no going back. The human government, scattered across a dozen different star systems, would know that Earth had been found. They would have to decide what to do next. "Send it," he said. On his screen, Jake watched the alien ships slow down as they reached Earth. The blue planet looked so peaceful from this distance, so perfect. He wondered what the aliens were thinking when they saw it. Did they think they had found paradise? Did they know what they were really looking at? The largest alien ship moved closer to Earth. It was 10 times bigger than anything humans had ever built. Its crystal surface pulsed with soft light like a heartbeat. Smaller ships flew around it like children around their mother. "Sir, they're scanning the planet," Amy reported. "Deep scans. They're looking at everything. The atmosphere, the oceans, the land." Jake watched the scans on his screen. The aliens were being very thorough. They mapped every mountain, every river, every forest. But Jake knew they wouldn't understand what they were seeing. Not yet. "Are they picking up the defense systems?" Jake asked. Amy checked her instruments. "No, sir. Everything is still sleeping. The caretakers haven't woken up yet." That was good. The longer the aliens thought Earth was empty, the better. It would give humanity time to decide what to do. But Jake knew it wouldn't last long. The moment the aliens tried to land, everything would change. Hours passed. The alien fleet spread out around Earth like a net. Some ships went to the moon. Others positioned themselves at the points where space traffic would normally enter Earth's atmosphere. They were setting up shop, making themselves at home. "Sir, we're getting some kind of broadcast from the lead ship," Amy said. "It's not directed at us. I think they're talking to each other. Can you translate it?" "The computer is trying, sir, but it's completely different from any language in our database." Jake wasn't surprised. These aliens had come from somewhere far away, somewhere humanity had never been. Their language would be as strange as their crystal ships. On the screen, Jake watched smaller alien ships begin to descend toward Earth. They moved carefully, like doctors examining a patient. Each ship took samples of air and water. They studied the plants and animals. They were learning about their new home. "They think it's empty," Jake said quietly. "What, sir?" "Earth. They think no one lives there anymore. Look how confident they are. They're not being careful about hiding. They're not worried about being attacked. They think they found an empty planet." Amy looked at her instruments again. "Should we tell them they're wrong?" Jake almost laughed. How could they explain it? How could they tell these aliens that the beautiful, peaceful planet below them was one of the most dangerous places in the galaxy? That every tree, every rock, every drop of water was protected by technology beyond anything the aliens had ever seen? "Not yet," Jake said. "Let them figure it out themselves." More alien ships landed on Earth. Jake could see their lights. On the night side of the planet, tiny spots of brightness in the darkness. The aliens were building something. Camps, maybe, or research stations. "Sir, Command is asking for a full report," Amy said. "Admiral Foster wants to know everything about the alien fleet." Jake nodded. Admiral Foster was in charge of the human government now. She would have to decide whether to come home or let the aliens keep Earth. It wasn't an easy choice. Humanity had been gone for so long that Earth had become more legend than home. "Tell the Admiral that the visitors seem peaceful," Jake said, "but also tell her they're not planning to leave anytime soon." As Jake watched, more alien ships arrived. The fleet was growing bigger. Whatever these aliens were planning, it was big. They weren't just exploring Earth. They were preparing to stay. Jake thought about the caretakers sleeping beneath Earth's surface. He thought about the defense systems waiting for someone to wake them up. He thought about all the surprises humanity had left behind on their old home world. The aliens had no idea what they were getting into. They thought they had discovered paradise. Instead, they had found the most well-protected secret in the galaxy. "Keep watching," Jake told Amy, "and keep recording. This is going to be interesting." Outside the station, the alien fleet continued its work. Soon, Jake knew, they would try to change Earth to suit their needs. They would dig and build and reshape the land. That's when the real show would begin. Commander Vextol stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the blue world spin slowly below. His people had traveled for many cycles to reach this place, following old star maps and ancient rumors. Now they had found what they were looking for, a perfect world, ready for their kind. "Report," Vextol said to his science officer. "The planet exceeds all expectations, Commander," Zarathon replied. "Oxygen atmosphere, vast oceans, fertile land. The temperature is ideal. We could begin settlement immediately." Vextol felt satisfaction flow through his crystalline body. His people needed a new home. Their old world was dying, slowly but surely. This blue planet would save them all. 3 days into their survey, the first strange reading appeared. Doctor Lisa Parker watched from the research ship Meridian, hidden behind one of Jupiter's moons. Her ship was small and quiet, designed to watch without being seen. Through her powerful sensors, she could see everything the aliens were doing on Earth. "They're setting up camps in North America," she told Captain Ben Torres. "Looks like they plan to stay." "Any sign they know about the defenses?" Ben asked. "Not yet, but they're starting to ask questions." On Earth's surface, Zeraphim survey teams spread across the continents. They took soil samples and studied the local plants and animals. Everything seemed normal at first. But some things didn't make sense. Scout leader Kenthal examined a forest in what humans had once called Oregon. The trees were tall and healthy, but their arrangement was too perfect. They formed patterns that nature wouldn't normally create. Lines and circles and shapes that looked almost like writing. "This is unusual," Kenthal reported to his ship. "The vegetation appears to be organized." His team found more strange things as they explored. Rivers that curved in mathematical patterns. Hills that were too round and too evenly spaced. Rock formations that looked like they had been carved by intelligent hands. "Perhaps the previous inhabitants modified the landscape," suggested his assistant, Yeltar. "Previous inhabitants?" Kenthal was confused. The scans showed no signs of civilization. Maybe they were very old. Maybe their cities crumbled away. Long ago. Back on the Meridian, Dr. Parker smiled as she listened to the alien conversations. Her translation computer was getting better at understanding their language every hour. "They're starting to figure it out," she told Ben. "They can tell someone was here before them. But they don't know we're still watching." "No. And they don't know what's sleeping under their feet." The Seraphim teams dug deeper into Earth's mysteries. In what had once been the Sahara Desert, they found metal buried in the sand. Not scattered pieces, but organized structures stretching for kilometers underground. Their digging equipment couldn't make a dent in the strange metal. "This alloy is unknown," reported Engineer Telan. "It's harder than anything in our database, and it's generating a small electromagnetic field." Commander Vextal studied the reports from all his teams. Every continent showed signs of ancient engineering, roads that were too straight, valleys that were too symmetrical, and everywhere, the same strange metal buried just deep enough to avoid casual detection. How advanced were these people? He wondered aloud. Dr. Parker knew the answer to that question. The metal the aliens had found was human-made, created with technology that was still beyond anything most species could achieve. It was part of Earth's skeleton now, a network of support and protection that ran under every landmass. On the fourth day, the Seraphim made their first real mistake. A terraforming team in South America decided to test their atmospheric processors. They wanted to see if they could improve the air quality in their landing zone. The moment their machine started working, something deep underground stirred. Lisa's instruments went crazy. Energy readings spiked across the planet, electromagnetic. Patterns that had been dormant for centuries suddenly came to life. "Ben, you need to see this," she called. "The grid is activating." Captain Torres looked at her screen. Lines of energy were lighting up across Earth's surface, connecting the metal structures the aliens had found. It looked like a vast circuit board stretching around the entire planet. "Is it dangerous?" Ben asked. "Not yet. But something is waking up." The Seraphim teams felt it too. The ground beneath their feet hummed with power. Their instruments detected. Energy flows moving through the planet like blood through veins. Whatever they had found, it was much bigger than a few buried structures. "Commander," Zarathan reported, "we're detecting massive technological signatures across the entire planet. Whatever civilization was here, they built on a scale we've never seen before." Vexital felt the first touch of unease. His people were explorers and settlers, not warriors. They had never encountered anything like this. "Are we in danger?" he asked. "Unknown, Commander. The technology appears to be inactive. But our terraforming attempt seems to have triggered some kind of response." On the surface, the Seraphim teams watched in amazement as patterns of light began to appear in the landscape. The strange arrangements of trees and rocks suddenly made sense. They were part of a gigantic display system, showing information in a language none of them could read. Kenthal stood in his Oregon forest, watching as the trees themselves began to glow with soft blue light. The patterns they formed were definitely writing, but in symbols that hurt his eyes to look at directly. "It's beautiful," Yeltar whispered. "But what does it say?" They would learn soon enough. The message was simple, repeated in thousands of locations across Earth in hundreds of different ways. It said, "Welcome. Please wait. The owners will return soon." But the Seraphim couldn't read it yet. All they knew was that the planet was much more than it appeared. Every rock, every tree, every grain of sand was part of something larger. Something that was slowly waking up after a very long sleep. Dr. Parker watched the light show from space. She knew what the messages said because her ancestors had helped write them. The Seraphim had found Earth, but they had also found something else. They had found proof that humanity was much older and much more powerful than anyone in the galaxy suspected. "Should we contact them?" Ben asked. "Let them know what they're dealing with?" Lisa shook her head. "Not yet. Let them explore a little more. Let them understand what they've really discovered." Below them, Earth continued to wake up. The sleeping giant was stirring, and soon the Seraphim would learn that finding an empty planet and finding a safe planet were two very different things. Commander Rick Sullivan crouched behind a rocky outcrop on Earth's surface, watching the alien camp through his binoculars. His team of 6 humans had landed on Earth 3 days ago, the first of their kind to set foot on their homeworld in over 800 years. It felt strange to be back. The air smelled different than the recycled atmosphere of the colony ships. Richer, more alive. But underneath the familiar sense of grass and flowers, Rick could sense something else. An electric feeling in the air, like the moment before lightning strikes. "Sir, the electromagnetic readings are getting stronger," whispered Sergeant Kate Wilson, checking her scanner. "Whatever the aliens triggered, it's spreading." Rick nodded. They had been monitoring the situation since the Seraphim started their terraforming attempts. Each time the aliens tried to modify Earth's atmosphere or geology, the planet's response grew stronger. 2 kilometers away, the Seraphim had set up their largest base in what used to be Kansas. Rick counted at least 30 alien structures, all made from the same crystal material as their ships. The aliens moved between the buildings like busy insects, completely unaware that they were being watched. "Movement to the east," reported Corporal Dan Brooks. "Something big coming up from underground." Rick turned his binoculars toward the disturbance. The ground was bulging upward, forming a hill where flat prairie had been moments before. As he watched, the dirt fell away to reveal something metallic and massive underneath. It was a dome, smooth and silver, about the size of a city block. Panels slid open along its surface, and mechanical arms emerged like the legs of a giant spider. The arms moved with purpose, setting up antenna arrays and sensor dishes. "My God," breathed Lieutenant Sarah Kim. "Is that one of ours?" "Has to be," Rick said. "The caretakers are waking up." The Seraphim noticed the new structure immediately. Their crystal buildings pulsed with urgent light patterns as they tried to understand what was happening. Rick could see alien figures running between the buildings, pointing at the silver dome. More domes began to rise from the earth. Rick's team counted 12 within visual range, and their scanners detected dozens more across the continent. Each one was perfectly positioned to monitor and protect the surrounding area. Commander Vextal stood on his command platform, watching his scientists scramble to analyze the new developments. The planet had been quiet for days, showing only minor energy readings. Now it was transforming before their eyes. "Sir, we're detecting similar structures emerging worldwide," Zarathon reported. "Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They're all connected by the underground network we found earlier." "Are they weapons?" Vextal asked. "Unknown. They appear to be defensive in nature, but we're not detecting any hostile targeting systems." Vextal felt relief mixed with curiosity. If the ancient inhabitants had left behind guardians, at least, those guardians weren't immediately attacking his people. The nearest dome, only a few hundred meters from the Seraphim base, finished its emergence sequence. A section of its surface became transparent, revealing a chamber filled with soft blue light. Inside, something moved. Rick adjusted his binoculars to get a better look. Through the transparent panel, he could see a humanoid figure standing motionless in the blue glow. It was tall and thin, wearing what looked like an environmental suit from humanity's early space exploration days. "Is that—" Sarah started to ask. "A human," Rick finished, "or what's left of one." The figure in the dome opened its eyes. They glowed with the same blue light that filled the chamber. When it moved, Rick could tell it wasn't entirely human anymore. The movements were too smooth, too precise. This was something that had been human once, but had become something more. The caretaker stepped out of its dome through an opening that appeared without sound. It stood 7 feet tall, its body covered in a skin-tight suit that seemed to be part machine, part living tissue. When it looked toward the Seraphim base, its glowing eyes saw everything. "Greetings," the caretaker said. Its voice carried across the distance, amplified by technology built into its throat. It spoke in the Seraphim language, translated perfectly by implants in its brain. The aliens froze in surprise. They had been expecting ancient machines, not something that looked almost alive. "I am Caretaker Unit Designation, Guardian 77 Alpha," the figure continued. "I have been assigned to protect this region of Earth during the absence of the departed ones." Vextal activated his communication system. "Who are the departed ones?" he asked. "The builders of this world, the ones who shaped every mountain and guided every river, the ones who will return when the star patterns align correctly." The caretaker tilted its head, studying the alien base. "You are not them." "We are explorers from the Seraphim Coalition," Vextal explained. "We found this world empty and suitable for colonization." "Empty?" The caretaker's glowing eyes brightened. "This world is not empty. It is maintained. It is protected. It is loved." Around the base, more caretakers emerged from their domes. Each one was slightly different, adapted for different tasks. Some were built for heavy labor, with arms like construction equipment. Others were clearly designed for scientific work, their bodies incorporating advanced sensors and analysis tools. Rick watched the confrontation with growing amazement. The caretakers had been left behind when humanity evacuated Earth, volunteers, who had chosen to merge with advanced AI systems to become the planet's eternal guardians. They had been sleeping for centuries, waiting for either humanity's return or the arrival of visitors. "The departed ones will return," Vextal asked. "When the time is right," Guardian 77 Alpha confirmed. "Until then, we maintain their world. We keep it safe. We keep it ready." "How long have you been waiting?" The caretaker paused, accessing memories that spanned centuries. 847 years, 212 days, 16 hours. The precision of the answer sent chills through the Seraphim camp. These guardians had been counting every moment since their creators left. "We mean no harm," Vextal said carefully. We simply seek a new home for our people. This world is already home to someone, the caretaker replied, but the departed ones taught us about hospitality. You may stay as guests if you follow the rules. What rules? Guardian 77 Alpha gestured toward the sky, where alien ships continued to orbit. No permanent changes to the atmosphere, no deep mining beyond approved zones, no destruction of native life forms, no interference with the maintenance systems. Rick smiled behind his binoculars. The caretakers were being diplomatic, but firm. They were offering the aliens a chance to coexist peacefully, but only on humanity's terms. And if we refuse? Vextal asked. The caretaker's expression didn't change, but every dome within sight began to glow brighter. Underground, massive systems that had been dormant for centuries hummed to life. Then we will protect our world, the Guardian said simply, as we were made to do. The demonstration was subtle but unmistakable. The aliens had stumbled into someone else's home, and the house had very sophisticated security systems. Rick keyed his radio. Base, this is Sullivan. The negotiations have begun. Recommend we maintain observation and wait for further developments. On the radio, Captain Jake Morrison's voice crackled back from Alpha 7 station. Understood. Keep watching. Things are about to get very interesting. Rick settled in for a long watch. The Seraphim had wanted to find an empty world. Instead, they had found guardians who remembered everything and protectors who never slept. Now they would have to decide whether they could live as guests in someone else's house. The caretakers stood motionless around their base, patient as stone. They had waited 800 years. They could wait a little longer. Engineer Beth Coleman sat in the communications center of the human fleet ship Liberty, positioned safely beyond Pluto's orbit. Banks of computers surrounded her, working constantly to translate and decode the conversations happening near Earth. For the past week, she had been listening to every word exchanged between the Seraphim and the caretakers. Admiral Foster wants the latest translation updates, said Commander Pete Davis, entering the room with a cup of coffee. Tell her the negotiations are getting more detailed, Beth replied, adjusting her headset. The aliens are asking harder questions, and the caretakers are giving them real answers. On her main screen, Beth could see the feed from Commander Sullivan's team on Earth. The human observers were hidden in the hills above the Seraphim base, recording everything. In the valley below, Guardian 77 Alpha stood facing Commander Vextal, their conversation being broadcast to both their respective fleets. You say your creators will return, Vextal was saying, but it has been many centuries. Perhaps they are not coming back. The caretaker's glowing eyes focused on the alien commander. The departed ones always keep their promises. They said they would return when the galaxy was safe for them, when their enemies were defeated or forgotten. What enemies? Guardian 77. Alpha paused, accessing deep memory files. Those who feared human progress. Those who tried to destroy what humanity had built. The departed ones left this world, to draw their enemies away, to protect what they loved most. Beth felt a chill as she translated those words. Even the caretakers didn't know the full truth about why humanity had left Earth. They knew only what they needed to know to do their job. Tell us about your creators, Vextal requested. What were they like? The caretaker turned toward one of the nearby domes. The transparent section lit up, showing holographic images of humans from centuries past. The aliens watched in fascination as the display showed human cities, human art, human achievements. They were builders, the Guardian said. They looked at empty worlds and saw gardens. They looked at hostile environments and saw homes. They took a small planet covered in water and turned it into the center of galactic civilization. The hologram showed Earth as it had been during humanity's golden age. Massive cities floated on the oceans. Space elevators reached from the surface to orbital stations. The aurora borealis had been modified to display information and art across the entire northern sky. Impossible, whispered Zarathon, Vextal's science officer. No species could build on such a scale. The departed ones did not think in terms of impossible, Guardian 77 Alpha replied. They thought in terms of interesting challenges. The hologram shifted to show human exploration fleets leaving Earth. Thousands of ships, each one carrying families and scientists and artists to new worlds across the galaxy. They were not conquerors, the caretaker explained. They were gardeners. Every world they touched became more beautiful, more alive. They shared their knowledge freely with any species that wanted to learn. Beth translated rapidly, sending the conversation back to Admiral Foster. The human government needed to know how much the caretakers were revealing about humanity's past. Where did they go? Vextal asked. To seed new worlds with life. To teach young species about science and art. To prepare the galaxy for the day when all thinking beings could live in peace. The Guardian looked directly at the alien commander. They will return when that day comes. And you have waited all this time? We are their children, Guardian 77 Alpha said simply. We were created from the best of humanity, combined with the strongest artificial minds they could build. We do not grow tired of waiting. We do not forget our purpose. Around the base, other caretakers had been demonstrating their abilities to curious Seraphim scientists. One Guardian was reshaping a hillside with its bare hands, the earth flowing like clay under its touch. Another was communicating with the local wildlife, calling birds and mammals to come peacefully to its side. Your technology, Vexatal said slowly. It seems to blend the mechanical with the biological. The departed ones learned that the best tools are grown, not built, the Guardian replied. They merged their science with the living systems of this world. Every tree, every flower, every grain of sand contains nanotechnology that responds to our commands. To demonstrate, Guardian 77 Alpha gestured toward a patch of bare ground. Within seconds, grass began to grow there, followed by flowers that bloomed in complex mathematical patterns. The display was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Beth's translation computer struggled with some of the technical terms the Guardian was using. Human technology had advanced far beyond what most species could understand, and even the simplified explanations were difficult to follow. The entire planet is alive? Zarathon asked in amazement. The entire planet is aware, the Guardian corrected. Every system knows its place in the larger design. Every creature understands its role in maintaining the balance. The caretaker walked over to a small stream running past the base. When it placed its hand in the water, the stream began to glow with soft phosphorescence. Fish appeared from nowhere, swimming in perfect spirals around the Guardian's fingers. Even the water obeys you, Vextal observed. We do not command, Guardian 77 Alpha explained. We cooperate. The departed ones taught us that true power comes from working with natural forces, not against them. The alien commander looked around at the landscape with new understanding. What he had thought was a pristine wilderness was actually a carefully maintained garden. Every aspect of Earth's environment was under subtle but complete control. How many of you are there? He asked. Guardians number in the thousands. Support systems number in the millions. The planetary intelligence itself is beyond counting. Beth paused in her translation. The caretakers had just revealed something that even the human government might not fully understand. Earth itself had become intelligent during humanity's absence. "This world thinks?" Vextal asked, voicing Beth's own question. "This world dreams of the day when its creators return," the Guardian said. "It remembers every human who ever lived here. It keeps their memories safe, waiting to share them again." The implications hit Beth like a physical blow. Earth wasn't just protected by advanced guardians. It was protected by the living memories of every human who had ever called it home. "Commander, you need to see this," Pete said urgently, pointing at another screen. "We're getting readings from Earth's core. Massive energy signatures, growing stronger by the hour." Beth looked at the data, her heart racing. The planet's awakening was accelerating. Soon, Earth would be fully conscious for the first time in centuries. "Tell Admiral Foster," she said quietly. "Tell her it's time to come home. Earth is waking up, and it wants to see its children again." On the surface, Guardian 77 Alpha looked up at the stars, its glowing eyes somehow seeing the hidden human fleet. "Soon," it said softly. "Soon the departed ones will return, and this world will be complete again." The Seraphim had thought they were negotiating with simple guardians. Instead, they were talking to the voice of an entire planet that remembered what it meant to be loved. Scholar Kethron stood at the edge of what had once been called the Grand Canyon, but the massive gorge before him was unlike anything in the Seraphim historical records. The canyon walls showed clear signs of artificial modification, too straight, too symmetrical, with structures carved directly into the rock face. "This is definitely not natural," he told his archaeological team. "Look at these patterns. These are design spaces, not erosion." His assistant, Yolteth, pointed her scanner at the canyon walls. "I'm detecting hollow spaces behind the rock. Large chambers connected by tunnels. It's like a city built inside the mountain." 3 days had passed since their first contact with the caretakers. Commander Vextal had given permission for archaeological teams to explore Earth's surface, hoping to learn more about the mysterious departed ones. What they were finding challenged everything the Seraphim thought they knew about galactic history. Lieutenant Sam Mitchell watched the alien excavation from his hidden position on the opposite rim of the canyon. His team had been following the Seraphim archaeologists, recording their discoveries for the human government. Every revelation was more impressive than the last. "They just found the entrance to Old Geneva," he radioed to Captain Jake Morrison, on Alpha 7 station. "The underground city that housed 12 million people." "Are they going inside?" Jake asked. "Not yet. They're being careful, but the caretakers are helping them." Down in the canyon, Guardian 12-3 Beta materialized beside the Seraphim team. This caretaker was different from the others they had met. Smaller, more delicate, clearly designed for archaeological and historical work. "You wish to see the ancient city?" the Guardian asked in perfect Seraphim. Kethran nodded eagerly. "We want to understand your creators. Who were they? How did they build such things?" Guardian 12-3. Beta touched the canyon wall. A section of rock flowed, aside like water, revealing a tunnel that glowed with soft light. The air that flowed out smelled of flowers and clean rain. "Follow me," the Guardian said. "I will show you wonders." The tunnel led deep into the mountain, past chambers carved from solid rock. Each room they passed was a work of art, walls covered in flowing patterns that seemed to move in the light, ceilings that showed moving images of stars and galaxies. The departed ones believed that utility and beauty were the same thing, Guardian 12-3 Beta explained as they walked. Everything they built was meant to serve a purpose and inspire the soul. They emerged into a vast underground space that took Kethran's breath away. The cavern was as large as a city, its ceiling lost in misty heights. But it wasn't empty. Buildings filled the space, not ruins, but perfect structures that looked like they had been built yesterday. This city housed millions, the Guardian said. Scientists, artists, philosophers, children. They lived here during the dangerous years when the galaxy was not safe for peace. Yolteth's scanner was going crazy. These buildings, they're not made of any material I recognize. It's like living stone that shapes itself. Smart matter, the Guardian explained. Matter that thinks and adapts. The departed ones didn't just build with tools. They convinced materials to become what was needed. They walked through streets that were too perfect to be real. The buildings changed as they watched, adjusting their shapes to provide better lighting or more interesting shadows. Gardens grew from the floor itself, flowers blooming in response to their presence. "Where did everyone go?" Kethran asked. "To the stars," Guardian 12-3. Beta replied. "When the great exodus began, every human chose their path. Some went to seed new worlds. Others became guardians like us. A few chose to sleep until their people returned." Sleep? The Guardian led them to a building that was different from the others, more organic, like it had grown instead of being built. Inside, rows of crystalline chambers lined the walls. In each chamber, a figure rested in perfect preservation. Volunteers, who chose to wait, the Guardian explained. They sleep in stasis, dreaming of the day when humanity comes home. When that day arrives, they will wake and help rebuild. Kethran approached one of the chambers. Inside, he could see a human female, young and peaceful, surrounded by swirling energy that kept her body unchanged by time. "How many?" he whispered. "In this city alone? 50,000? Across all of Earth? Nearly 1,000,000. The sleeping guardians of humanity's birth world." The magnitude of what the Seraphim had discovered was staggering. This wasn't just an abandoned planet. It was a carefully preserved museum, a library, a seed bank for an entire civilization. Lieutenant Mitchell followed the alien team through his own hidden tunnels. Human technology was far more advanced than what the caretakers were showing the visitors. Secret passages ran throughout every human structure, allowing observation without detection. "Jake, they're seeing the public areas," he reported. "The caretakers are being very selective about what they reveal." "What aren't they showing?" Sam looked at his scanner, which could detect the true scope of the underground complex. The military sections, the research labs, the manufacturing centers. This place isn't just a city, it's a fortress that could supply an army. Above ground, more Seraphim teams were making discoveries across every continent. In what had been called Asia, they found automated factories still producing materials for unknown purposes. In the former Amazon, they discovered vertical farms that grew food for no one, maintaining themselves for centuries. Scholar Velanth, working in the ruins of what humans had called London, made perhaps the most disturbing discovery. Deep beneath the city, she found a chamber filled with machines that were clearly weapons, but weapons beyond anything the Seraphim could understand. These devices, she reported to Commander Vextal. They seem designed to reshape matter at the molecular level. A single unit could transform an entire planet. Vextal felt a chill as he received the report. The peaceful caretakers had mentioned that their creators were gardeners and teachers. They hadn't mentioned that they were also warriors capable of remaking worlds. "Are the weapons active?" he asked. "Unknown. The caretakers won't let us examine them closely. They say some knowledge is too dangerous for guests to learn." On the human fleet ship Liberty, Engineer Beth Coleman was translating these conversations with growing concern. The Seraphim were learning too much, too fast. Soon they would understand that humanity wasn't just an ancient civilization. They were the most powerful force the galaxy had ever seen. "Admiral Foster needs to know," she told Commander Davis. "The aliens are starting to piece together what Earth really is." "What is it, exactly?" Beth looked at her screens, showing the vast network of tunnels, cities, and installations that honeycombed the entire planet. "It's not just humanity's homeworld, it's their greatest fortress. Every system, every building, every grain of sand is part of the largest military installation ever constructed." Back in the underground city, Kethron stood before a massive wall covered in moving images. The display showed the history of humanity's expansion across the galaxy. Thousands of worlds settled, millions of species contacted, entire star systems transformed into gardens. "Your people did all this?" he asked Guardian 12-3 Beta. "This was only the beginning," the Guardian replied. "The departed ones had plans for the entire galaxy. They dreamed of a time when every world would bloom with life, when every species would reach its full potential. And they gave it all up to leave Earth?" The Guardian's glowing eyes dimmed slightly. "They gave up their dream temporarily to preserve it permanently. The forces that opposed them could destroy worlds, but they could not destroy ideas. Humanity scattered their ideals across the galaxy like seeds. Someday those seeds will grow into something beautiful." Catherine realized that the Seraphim hadn't just found an empty planet. They had found the origin point of galactic civilization itself. Every advanced technology, every peaceful alliance, every scientific breakthrough could be traced back to this small blue world and the species that had called it home. The question was, what would happen when those people decided to come back? Captain Jake Morrison stood in the main communication center of Alpha 7 Station, his hand hovering over a control panel that hadn't been used in 800 years. The activation key was simple, just a red button protected by a clear cover. But pressing it would change everything. "Are you sure about this, sir?" asked Lieutenant Amy Chen. "Once we send the signal, there's no taking it back." Jake looked at the message from Admiral Foster that had arrived an hour ago. The orders were clear. Activate the beacon. After centuries of silence, it was time to call humanity home. "The Seraphim are learning too much," Jake said. "Better they know the truth from us than discover it on their own." He lifted the cover and pressed the button. Deep beneath Earth's surface, in a chamber that had been sealed since the Great Departure, ancient machines came to life. The quantum beacon, humanity's greatest achievement in long-range communication, began to charge its systems. Admiral Kate Foster stood on the bridge of the flagship New Geneva, watching the sensor displays as her fleet prepared for the longest journey any of them had ever taken. Around her, 300 ships held the last free humans in the galaxy, the descendants of those who had fled Earth to protect it from destruction. "Signal strength is building," reported her communications officer, Lieutenant Bob Hayes. "The beacon should reach full power in approximately 6 hours." Kate nodded. 6 hours to contact every human settlement across the galaxy. 6 hours to tell them it was finally safe to come home. The beacon wasn't just a communication device. It was a quantum entanglement transmitter that could send messages instantly across any distance. When humanity had scattered to the stars, they had taken smaller versions of the beacon with them. For 8 centuries, those devices had been silent, waiting for Earth to call them home. On Earth's surface, the activation of the beacon created effects that the Seraphim couldn't ignore. The aurora displays in both polar regions suddenly intensified, showing patterns that were clearly artificial. Underground energy flows, already strong from the caretaker's awakening, surged to levels that registered on every scanner. Commander Vextal watched from his command post as his instruments detected the massive power buildup. "What is happening?" he demanded. Guardian 77 Alpha appeared beside him, moving with the silent grace that still unnerved the alien commander. "The beacon awakens," the caretaker said simply. "The call goes out to the scattered children of Earth." What call? The call to come home. Scholar Kethran was deep in the underground city when the power surge began. The building around him responded to the increased energy by becoming more active. Walls that had shown static images now displayed moving scenes of life across the galaxy. Floors that had been solid stone began to flow and reshape themselves. "Guardian," he called to his guide, "what's happening to the city?" Guardian 12-3. Beta's form was glowing brighter than usual. "Earth prepares for the return of its children. Every system must be ready. Every facility must be at full capacity." They're really coming back? They never truly left. They have been waiting for the galaxy to be ready for them. Across Earth, similar changes were taking place. The automated factories in Asia began producing at maximum capacity, creating supplies for populations that didn't exist yet. The vertical farms started growing enough food to feed millions. Orbital platforms that had been powered down for centuries came back online, ready to receive ships from space. Lieutenant Sam Mitchell and his observation team watched in amazement as the landscape around them transformed. Hills that had looked natural revealed themselves to be massive structures. Lakes drained away to exposed landing platforms. Forests rearranged themselves to create clear paths for heavy transportation. "Jake, you need to see this," Sam radioed to Alpha 7 station. "The whole planet is changing. It's like Earth is getting ready for the biggest party in galactic history." On the New Geneva, Admiral Foster received the first responses to the beacon's call. Colony ships from a dozen different star systems confirmed they had received the signal and were beginning their journey home. Exploration fleets deep in unknown space reported they were turning around. Research stations on the galaxy's edge started shutting down their experiments and packing their equipment. "How many ships will be coming?" asked Captain Laura Chen, Foster's second-in-command. "Conservative estimate, 50,000 vessels of various sizes. Liberal estimate, over 100,000. Laura whistled softly. "The largest fleet in galactic history." "Not a fleet," Kate corrected. "A homecoming." The Seraphim monitoring stations detected the first signs of incoming ships within hours of the beacon's activation. Long-range sensors picked up quantum signatures moving through hyperspace at speeds that seemed impossible. "Commander," Zarathon reported to Vextal, "we're detecting massive space traffic approaching the Sol system, hundreds of ships, possibly thousands." Vextal felt the first real fear he had experienced since arriving at Earth. His people's entire fleet consisted of less than 50 vessels. If the approaching ships were hostile, the Seraphim wouldn't stand a chance. Are they military vessels? He asked. Unknown. The technology is unlike anything in our databases. They're traveling faster than our best ships, but we're not detecting weapons signatures. Guardian 7-7. Alpha, still standing nearby, turned its glowing eyes towards space. They carry no weapons because they do not need weapons. They are coming home to a world that loves them. How do you know this? Because I can hear them, the Guardian said. Every Guardian on Earth can hear their voices singing across the void. They sing of joy, of relief, of 800 years, of waiting finally coming to an end. Engineer Beth Coleman, aboard the human fleet ship Liberty, was coordinating the massive logistical challenge of humanity's return. Ships were arriving from every corner of the galaxy, all heading toward the small blue world that had given birth to their species. "Priority message from Admiral Foster," announced Commander Pete Davis. "She wants a complete analysis of the Seraphim response to our activation of the beacon." Beth checked her translation computers. The alien communications were full of fear and confusion, but also wonder and curiosity. "They're scared," she reported. "But they're not running. I think they want to understand what's happening." "Are they preparing for combat?" "No. If anything, they're pulling their ships back to safer distances. They're acting more like tourists who stumbled into someone else's wedding than invaders preparing for war." That was exactly what Vextal was feeling. His people had thought they were colonizing an empty world. Instead, they had discovered the home world of what might be the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. And that civilization was coming home. "Should we retreat?" asked Zarathon. Vextal considered this. They could run, try to find another world for their people. But where would they go? And would they ever again find a place as perfect as Earth? "No," he decided. "We stay. We learn. And we hope that the departed ones remember how to be hospitable to unexpected guests." In the underground city, Kethran watched as the sleeping humans began to stir in their crystal chambers. The stasis fields were weakening, preparing the sleepers for awakening. Soon, the underground cities would be full of life again. "How long until they arrive?" he asked Guardian 12-3 Beta. "The fastest ships will reach Earth orbit in 7 days, the Guardian replied. "The main fleet will arrive within 30 days, and the migration itself will continue for years as every human in the galaxy comes home." Kethran felt a mixture of excitement and terror. He was about to witness the return of a species that had shaped galactic civilization. The Seraphim would be the first aliens to meet humanity on their home ground in over 8 centuries. He just hoped they would live to tell about it. Above Earth, the first stars began to flicker as incoming ships dropped out of hyperspace. The Great Return had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Kate Foster stood on the observation deck of the New Geneva, watching Earth grow larger in the viewport. After 800 years of exile, humanity's home world looked exactly as they had left it, blue and green and beautiful, wrapped in white clouds that sparkled in the sunlight. But Kate knew the truth. Earth had become something more than beautiful during their absence. It had become a fortress, a garden, and a living memory all at once. "Admiral, we're receiving communication from the Seraphim flagship," reported Lieutenant Bob Hayes. "Commander, Vextal requests permission to speak with you directly." Kate had been expecting this contact. The alien fleet had maintained a respectful distance as human ships filled the space around Earth, but their curiosity was obvious. "Put him through," she said. The main screen showed the crystal bridge of the Seraphim flagship. "Commander Vextal." appeared exactly as the intelligence reports had described. Tall, graceful, with skin that seemed to be made of living crystal. His expression showed a mixture of awe and careful politeness. "Admiral Foster," Vextal said, his words translated by technology that made his voice sound almost human. "I am Commander Vextal of the Seraphim Coalition. We did not know. This world was claimed," Kate smiled, trying to project warmth rather than intimidation. "Commander Vextal, welcome to Earth. I understand your people have been learning about our planet's history. Your caretakers have been most educational," Vextal replied carefully. "We are beginning to understand the scope of what your people accomplished here." Through the viewport behind Kate, more human ships continued to arrive. Massive colony vessels that dwarfed anything the Seraphim had built. Exploration ships with hulls that seemed to be grown rather than manufactured. Scientific vessels that bent light around themselves in impossible ways. "We should meet in person," Kate suggested. "I believe we have much to discuss." Down on Earth's surface, the meeting was arranged in the restored ruins of what had once been called New York City. The caretakers had prepared a neutral ground, a beautiful garden built on the site where the old United Nations building had stood. Captain Jake Morrison was finally able to leave Alpha 7 station and set foot on Earth for the first time. As his shuttle descended through the atmosphere, he marveled at the changes. The entire planet seemed to be glowing with gentle energy. Cities that had been ruins were rebuilding themselves. Forests were rearranging to accommodate landing areas for the returning fleets. Dr. Lisa Parker piloted her own shuttle down from the research ship Meridian, her scientific instruments recording everything. "Pete, are you seeing these readings?" she called to Commander Davis back on the Liberty. "Confirmed, Lisa. Earth's biosphere is actively adapting to support a massive population increase. The planet is preparing for billions of returning humans. Commander, Rick Sullivan's ground team had been recalled from their hidden positions to serve as security for the historic meeting." As they walked through the garden meeting area, Rick couldn't believe how Earth had changed. Plants grew in perfect mathematical patterns. The air itself seemed to sparkle with tiny machines that cleaned and purified everything they touched. "It's like the planet is alive," whispered Sergeant Kate Wilson. "It is alive," replied Guardian 77 Alpha, appearing beside them with its characteristic silence. "Earth has been dreaming of this day for 8 centuries. Every atom of this world remembers humanity's touch." The Seraphim delegation arrived first, their crystal shuttle landing with barely a sound. Commander Vextal emerged with his senior officers, all of them staring in wonder at the garden around them. Flowers bloomed in response to their presence, and the grass beneath their feet glowed with soft bioluminescence. Admiral Foster's shuttle landed minutes later. When the doors opened, Kate stepped out into Earth's natural air for the first time in her life. She had been born on a colony ship, as had her parents and grandparents. But somehow, breathing Earth's atmosphere felt like coming home. "Commander Vextal," she said, approaching the alien delegation with her hand extended in the universal human gesture of greeting. Vextal studied the offered hand, then carefully extended his own. The moment their skin touched, both leaders felt a small shock of recognition. Despite their different origins, they were both explorers, both protectors of their people. "Admiral Foster," Vextal said, "your world is remarkable. It's changed." "A great deal since we left," Kate admitted. "The caretakers have been busy." Around the garden, other meetings were taking place. Dr. Parker was deep in conversation with Seraphim scientists, comparing notes about the discoveries they had made. Captain Morrison was speaking with alien engineers about the technology they had observed. But the most interesting conversation was happening between Scholar Kethron and one of the newly awakened humans, Dr. Marcus Webb, who had been sleeping in stasis beneath the Grand Canyon for 800 years. "You chose to sleep for all those years?" Kethron asked in amazement. Marcus nodded, still adjusting to consciousness after centuries of dreams. "Some of us couldn't bear the thought of Earth being empty. We chose to stay, to wait, to be here when our people came home." "But you missed 800 years of life, 800 years of experiences." "No," Marcus said gently. "I experienced 800 years of dreaming about this moment. I dreamed of the day when humans would walk these paths again, when children would play in these gardens, when Earth would be whole again." Lieutenant Sam Mitchell was monitoring communications from his position near the shuttle landing area. The conversations he was hearing filled him with hope. The Seraphim weren't preparing for conflict. They were asking questions about cooperation. "Admiral," Vextal was saying to Kate, "my people need a new home. Our world is dying, and we cannot save it. When we found Earth, we thought it was a gift from the universe." "And now," Kate asked, "now I understand it belongs to someone who has loved it for a very long time." Kate looked around the garden, watching humans and aliens talking together in the golden afternoon light. Earth's sun felt warm on her face, and she could smell flowers that had been extinct for centuries, but had somehow returned to bloom again. "Commander," she said, "what if I told you that Earth is big enough for all of us?" Vextal's crystalline features shifted in what might have been surprise. "You would share your home world?" "We would share our home," Kate corrected. "There's a difference. A home world is just a place you came from. A home is a place where you belong." Guardian 77 Alpha stepped forward, its glowing eyes focused on both leaders. "The departed ones always taught that the universe is large enough for everyone to find their place. Perhaps your people and ours are meant to find that place together." Engineer Beth Coleman, monitoring from orbit, translated the Guardian's words for the human fleet. The response was immediate. Thousands of messages of support and curiosity from humans across the returning fleet. "Kate," came Admiral Foster's voice over the communicator, "the fleet commanders are voting unanimously to support a joint settlement. They want to meet our unexpected guests." Vexatal conferred quietly with his own officers, their crystal faces flickering with internal light as they communicated. Finally, he turned back to Kate. "My people would be honored to learn from yours," he said. "And perhaps we have things to teach as well." Kate smiled. "Then let's build something beautiful together." As the sun set over Earth, humans and Seraphim worked side by side to plan the first joint city in galactic history. The garden around them glowed with bioluminescent plants that responded to their excitement and hope. Above them, the returning human fleet continued to arrive, each ship carrying families who had never seen their species' birth world. Below them, the caretakers began preparing the planet for its greatest transformation yet. Not just the return of humanity, but the birth of a new kind of civilization. Earth was about to become more than humanity's homeworld. It was about to become the center of galactic peace. 2 years had passed since the Great Convergence, and the city of New Geneva rose from the shores of what had once been called Lake Superior. The city was a marvel of cooperation. human bioarchitecture flowed seamlessly into Seraphim crystal. Technology, creating buildings that lived and grew while maintaining perfect geometric beauty. Dr. Lisa Parker stood on the observation platform of the city's central spire, watching the morning activities below. Human children played alongside young Seraphim in parks, where the grass changed colors in response to laughter. Scientists from both species worked together in laboratories that grew their own research equipment. Artists collaborated on sculptures that sang in harmonies no single species could have created alone. "The integration reports are better than we hoped," said Dr. Marcus Webb, joining Lisa at the railing. The formerly sleeping human had become one of New Geneva's chief planners, his centuries of dreams helping to design a city that felt like home to both species. "Admiral Foster will be pleased," Lisa replied. "The council meeting this afternoon should go smoothly." Below them, Admiral Kate Foster walked through the market district with Commander Vextal, both leaders wearing simple clothes that marked them as citizens rather than military commanders. The market was a wonder of diversity. Human farmers sold vegetables that grew in impossible spirals, while Seraphim artists offered crystal sculptures that told stories when touched. "Your people adapt quickly," Vextal observed, watching a group of human teenagers learning to shape crystal with their Seraphim friends. "When my scientists first proposed sharing our growth techniques, we thought it would take generations to teach." Kate smiled. "Humans have always been good at learning. From our neighbors, it's one of our best traits." They stopped at a food stand run by Sarah Kim, the former lieutenant who had become one of New Geneva's most popular chefs. She was serving fusion dishes that combined human and Seraphim nutritional needs. Meals that nourished crystal-based biology while satisfying human taste preferences. "The usual?" Sarah asked, already preparing their orders. "Please," Kate said, "and add some of those energy crystals Marcus likes. He's been working too hard on the orbital platform project." At the edge of the city, Captain Jake Morrison supervised the construction of the new spaceport. Human and Seraphim engineers worked together to build landing facilities that could handle both organic technology and crystal-based ships. The caretakers assisted with the heavy construction, their enhanced strength making quick work of moving massive structural components. "Guardian, the Foundation sensors are showing some unusual readings," reported engineer Beth Coleman, who had transferred planetside to oversee the technical integration. Guardian 77. Alpha examined the data, its glowing eyes processing information faster than any computer. "The planet approves of the construction," it said simply. "Earth is extending its own systems to support the new infrastructure." Beth had learned not to be surprised by such statements. Earth had become an active partner in the city's development, growing specialized materials and adjusting its geology to provide perfect foundations for the expanding settlement. In the underground sections of New Geneva, scholar Ketheron worked with human historians to document the complete story of both species' development. The archives they were building would preserve the knowledge of two civilizations for future generations. "Your people's technical manuals are fascinating," Catherine said to Dr. Webb. "The way you describe engineering problems as artistic challenges, it's completely different from our approach. And your mathematical poetry helps us understand crystal growth in ways we never imagined," Marcus replied. "Some of our best innovations have come from translating Seraphim art into human engineering." The afternoon council meeting took place in the city's governing center, a building that grew from the ground itself and could reshape its interior to accommodate any number of participants. Today, representatives from across the galaxy had gathered to witness something unprecedented: the signing of the first truly universal peace treaty. Admiral Foster sat at a table that was itself a living organism, its surface shifting to display documents and data as needed. Around her sat not just human and Seraphim leaders, but representatives from dozens of other species who had heard about the success of New Geneva. The Galactic Cooperation Charter, Kate announced, represents more than just an agreement between our species. It's a new way of thinking about how different civilizations can work together. Commander Vextal stood to address the assembly. When my people first arrived at Earth, we thought we had found an empty world ready for conquest. Instead, we discovered that the universe already had gardeners, teachers, and protectors. We learned that the greatest strength comes not from taking, but from sharing. Captain Morrison, now serving as New Geneva's coordinator of space traffic, reported on the success of the integration. We currently have permanent residents from 17 different species. 12 more species have requested embassy status, and the waiting list for immigration continues to grow. The treaty signing was broadcast across the galaxy, reaching every human settlement and Seraphim colony. But more importantly, it reached hundreds of other civilizations who had been watching the experiment on Earth with growing interest. Lieutenant Sam Mitchell, now serving as New Geneva's Chief of Communications, coordinated the massive information network that kept the galaxy informed about their progress. We're receiving applications for cultural exchange programs from species we've never even heard of, he reported to the Council. Good, said Guardian 77 Alpha, who had been granted a permanent seat on the Council. The departed ones always believed that isolation breeds fear, while cooperation breeds wisdom. As evening fell over New Geneva, the city's bioluminescent systems came to life. Streets glowed with soft light that adjusted to the needs of different species' vision. Buildings pulsed gently with the rhythms of their inhabitants' sleep cycles. The harbor sparkled with phosphorescent water that had been modified to support both human and Seraphim marine biology studies. Kate Foster stood on her apartment balcony, looking out over the city she had helped create. Earth's moon hung low, in the sky, now home to dozens of research stations operated jointly by multiple species. The stars beyond showed the lights of orbital platforms where humans and aliens worked together to explore the deepest mysteries of the universe. Tired? Asked Vextal, joining her on the balcony. The Seraphim commander had become Kate's closest friend and advisor during the past 2 years. Content, Kate corrected. For the first time in 8 centuries, humanity is home, and we're not alone. Your caretakers were right, Vextal said, his crystal form reflecting the city lights in rainbow patterns. This world was waiting for the right moment, not just for humans to return, but for everyone to come together. Below them, the city hummed with peaceful activity. Night shift workers began their duties while day shift families settled in for the evening. Children of different species played games that incorporated multiple cultural traditions. Scientists prepared for experiments that would have been impossible without cross-species cooperation. What happens now? Vextal asked. Kate smiled, thinking of the messages arriving daily from across the galaxy. Now we grow. We learn. We help others find their place in the universe. And Earth? Kate looked down at the ground beneath the city, knowing that deep below, the planet's living systems were already preparing for the next phase of expansion. Earth becomes what it was always meant to be, not just humanity's home, but everyone's home. In the distance, a new ship was landing at the spaceport. Another species making first contact, drawn by stories of the miraculous city where different civilizations lived in harmony. Soon, there would be new voices in the council chambers, new ideas in the laboratories, new friends in the parks and markets. Guardian 77 Alpha materialized beside them, its presence no longer startling after 2 years of cooperation. The departed ones would be proud, the caretaker said, looking out over the thriving city. They dreamed of a galaxy united in peace. That dream is becoming reality. Kate nodded, feeling the weight of 8 centuries of hope finally finding fulfillment. Humanity had left Earth to protect it from those who feared progress and diversity. Now they had returned to find that their sacrifice had created something even more beautiful than they had imagined. The galaxy was finally ready for peace, and Earth, the small blue world that had given birth to the dream of universal cooperation, was ready to welcome everyone home. As the night deepened, the lights of New Geneva twinkled like stars reflected in water. And in the darkness of space, beyond, more ships appeared on the horizon, carrying new friends to the world where all species could find their place among the stars.